Hey pals, hey friends. So today's topic is going to be kind of short because my last video took a lot to write. I deserve a break. Also, I'm not feeling too well. I'm going to answer a question I was asked about how to balance good and evil in a main character. And it's a question I think about a lot, honestly, because moral ambiguity's one of my favorite things. When I was first writing, I made a lot of characters that were I guess edgy, but not super edgy. They were just anti-hero types. And I still love them, and I still RP with characters like this, and I still write characters like this, but I don't delve into them as often currently. And the main reason for that is, well, it's kind of hard to do. And by that, I don't mean writing it is that hard, but I find a lot of people don't always want to root for villains. I mean, there's tons of people who will love villains and froth at the mouth to be around a villain, but not everyone is very willing to stand beside an evil character that in the end actually gets their way, rather than one that's kind of tragic and loses. I don't know, there's a certain punch to that I find people are really into. Like most things, it all kind of comes down to knowing what your intention is. If you want lots of people to like a character, making them kind of an irredeemable villainous type isn't exactly the best idea, which is what I'm finding for a lot of my current work. But if you want to explore darker aspects, go for it. Just know that the audience coming with that is a very different and typically smaller audience. And that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. None of that is to say that you have to have a perfect main character if you're going for a more good main character. Flawed doesn't mean your character is a bad person, and horrible mistakes don't mean that they're bad either. The mileage varies for person to person. You have to just know what your intention is. Honestly, I'd write 100 bad to the bone main characters before I tried writing a passive main character, because that is a way harder battle. Focus on making a character that's fun to be around, motivated, and just interesting first, and worry about their morality second. Those things engagement, motivation, just passion in a character, they matter more than your character's morals to people, because most people aren't going to be interested by a very boring kind of flat character that doesn't have passion. I think most people would rather follow around a very passionate murderer as they go about their horrible life than they would a more boring character that doesn't really want things. So yeah, if you're willing to hang out with your character as you draw them and write them for years and years, that's more important. If you like to hang out with the villainous types in your head, go for it. And really just don't worry about it. Just think about what your intention is and just freaking have at it, okay? That's all I have to say about that aspect of things. That's my answer to the question. It's not as fleshed out as I'd like it to be, but again, I am sick. So I picked this topic for today because today I get to talk about Princess Sara. And Princess Sara is my absolute favorite character right now, and she is morally gray, to say the least. And my heart is aflutter because I am so excited to talk about her, but I'm also scared. I'm oh god, my daughter's at her recital. I don't know. So Princess Sara is from the Evil Fairy Kingdom RP. You can learn basically all about that in Ursula's video from yesterday. And so Princess Sara is the sister of Prince Calum, and Prince Calum was mentioned in another video. He is the prince that went ahead and married a fairy by accident and gave up their kingdom. And so Princess Sara, she is very upset with him. She is very upset with the whole ordeal that is going on with her kingdom as a whole. She is just not a fan. And she's been about the castle. Her parents were turned to stone, and her brother is off being kind of turned into a stool by the king. And she's just been hiding away in her room and avoiding all the fairies. And it's going all right for her. She's pretty mad and doesn't want to talk to her brother or anything, but she's not in any sort of danger until Azalea comes to the court. And Ursula talked about Azalea yesterday, about how she likes the pretty girls. Well, Azalea has very particular interest in Sara, because Sara is by far the most beautiful princess in the land. And so when Azalea comes to join the court, she picks out all the ladies and she sees Sara and she's like, King Wolf, I want that one. And King Wolf is like, sure, go ahead, take her. She's kind of like mean though, and like won't do what you say, so I don't know if she'll be like a good maid for you. Azalea's like, no, I like the wild ones. She'll be a perfect maid before she knows it. And so Sara is stubborn, and like that is like an understatement about Sara. Like me and Ursula are like constantly flabbergasted by the amount of stubbornness that can like come out of one single character. Like we will come up with ideas for this plot and Sara will just sit there and she'll be like, no, I'm not doing this. And it's just the worst and the best, and I just love a character that's has just such a strong personality. So like Azalea comes to her and she's like, I need you to clean my entire wing of the castle now. And Sara's like, no, I'm not doing that. Why would I listen to you? And her and Azalea fight for a bit over this. And then Azalea starts to turn her into a rat. And she's like, once you're done cleaning the castle, I'll consider turning you back. And Sara's like, no, I'm not gonna do what you say, even though. And Sara starts like just getting the other maids to start cleaning the castle. And she goes and yells at Calum to be like, you jerk, you caused this. You caused me to start turning into a rat. I am mad at you. Fix it. And Calum is too busy turning into a stool to really help her at the moment. And eventually she turns into a rat, and one of the other maids comes crying to Azalea with the poor little rat in her hand, and she's like, please, you have to turn Sara back. You have to turn Sara back, because all the maids are like really afraid of Sara and don't want her to be upset, and they're also terrified about all this magic stuff. And Azalea's like, did she clean the wing? And she's like, well, yeah, the wing is clean. And oh, so you clean the wing. And poor Matilda, which is the maid, is reprimanded for this. She turns Sara back into a human, but because of the way that magic works, there's like the magical scarring. And so Sara's teeth are a little like big. She's got like an overbite now, and she finds this very unattractive. It's not like super bad. It's like worse in her head, because like Sara's super obsessed with her looks, and it kind of comes down to like that's all that's like ever been expected of her, is to look pretty, and she like takes pride in the fact that she looks very pretty. Like she doesn't see herself as useful in any other manner. She gets mad at Azalea for making her teeth weird, and Azalea's like, oh, that's just scarring. And like she doesn't believe Azalea. She thinks like Azalea's trying to pull like the wool over her eyes on this one. And so she goes and tracks down like Emerald and is like, you potion man, like fix this. And he's like, oh no, that's just magical scarring. And she's like, what does that even mean? And he's like, humans are just sticky, and like when magic is cast upon them, residue's always left. And she's like, oh, find a way to fix it. And he's like, okay, I'll look into it, I'll see if I can do anything. And like Sara starts like fixating on it a lot, and that just makes it worse, because she starts being like, oh my gosh, my teeth are ugly and ratish. And of course, like her teeth start to become a lot more like ratish and bigger. In the meantime, Ambrosia and Azalea strike up this little bet together. Azalea's like, oh, I took all the lady servants. Too bad for you. And so Ambrosia's like, okay, we'll make a game of this. I will pick an unruly servant of my own, and you pick an unruly servant, and whoever can tame them without magic wins. Azalea's like, fine, I guess I'll do that. And then they stop doing magic for a while, and like she starts doing like daily assessments of Sara, because she learned that like Sara's mother used to do those to her, and that like maybe this would be like what she needs to like break her confidence. And they're really unfair, and because like she approaches Sara and she's like, I'm gonna do these critiques, and if you pass them, then you get to go free. And like Sara doesn't really have any choice. She tries her best at the critiques, but like Azalea just basically uses them to suggest that like she's becoming ugly, or maybe the curse is taking hold. It does start to take a hold of her, and she goes running to Emerald, and she's like, you need to stop this right now. And he's like, you need to just stop believing Azalea, and then she can't do anything to you. Sara is smart enough to like take this into consideration, and she's like, this is nothing. Like she can't do anything to me. Like, I handled my mother's critiques. I can handle this hag of a fairy talking about my looks. She's just jealous. And that works for a while. But then eventually what happens is Ambrosia, being Ambrosia, she accidentally, in a fit of anger, murders her servant. So she slyly goes over to Azalea and she's like, Azalea, I'm so bored with not being able to use magic on these servants. Maybe we could like change the rules now. And Azalea, who's been having so much trouble with Sara, is like, oh my god, please, yes. And Ambrosia like, oh, good thing. And she puts Fawn's soul into a doll and she's like, haha, I tricked you. And Azalea's like, god damn it, I could have won. But at least she gets to mess with Sara again. So Sara is being all pompous and being like, haha, like, you can't do anything to me, Azalea. And then Azalea turns her into a rat monster, like, oh, I forgot to mention that magic is back off the table. And she starts like turning more and more into a rat over time. Because like the more she kind of like freaks out and the more she stays as a rat, the more she gets like stuck in like that way of thinking. And like Azalea's like, all you gotta do is help me out and well-behaved servant, and like this could all go away. Meanwhile, Azalea's like taking all the beauty as she makes her into like into a little ugly rat, because Azalea is like also really needs Sarah's beauty, because after what happened at the party, she loses all her beauty because of Lilac. And so like Sara is able for the longest time to be like, it's just like I'm wearing an ugly costume, like this isn't what I am still beautiful on the inside. She's sure that the scarring won't be too bad, so she goes to Emerald and he's like, yeah, just don't think that you're a rat, you'll be fine. It's at least 50% reversible. And she's like, what? He's like, yeah, it's like 50%. You won't be like that terrible. She loses her mind about this, and so she runs to Calum for Calum's help. Unfortunately, Azalea has gone, and without Sara Sara kind of was noticing this happening, but like it didn't really sink in. Maids stop helping her, because like the first maid to stop helping her was Matilda, and she's kind of done this to all of the servants. And then the servants start seeing her as like a rat monster and avoiding her and screaming when they see her. And like no one calls her Sara anymore. They just call her Princess Rat or Rat Face. And so she goes to Calum for help, and he's like, oh god, it's a monster trying to attack me. And this is kind of the last straw for Sara. She's like freaking out, and she goes to Azalea and she's like, please don't make Calum forget me, blah 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 blah, please, I'll do anything for you. And Azalea is like, fine, I'll make him remember you, but you have to listen to me and do whatever I say. And then as soon as Calum remembers her, Sara is like, screw that, I'm not doing what Azalea says, and is like, Calum, you're king now, don't let Azalea hurt me. And Calum's like, what have you done to my sister? Because like he hasn't been seeing her because Sara doesn't like him and is really mad at him for losing their kingdom, and she's dealing with all this stuff with Azalea, and like she chews out Calum for no reason, basically. You are an awful brother if you don't undo this. And he's like, what did you do to my sister? And Azalea's like, I didn't do anything really, like I had like a bit of fun, but she's done most of this to herself. And then Calum asks Wolf to help like Sara, and he's like, the rat? That's a rat, Calum. And then like Wolf comments basically like, oh, like it's sort of hopeless at this point. She can't really be changed back, like that's all permanent, all of that is scarring. And she's like, wait, I'm stuck as a rat forever? And as she like comes to realize that, she turns into like an actual rat. And Azalea is very proud of herself and like, don't worry, Calum, I'll take good care of her. And Wolf pats Azalea on the back, and he's like, Azalea, I'm so proud of you. You usually make all of your maidens so hideous, but you made such a cute little rat. And Azalea's like, what? Wait, she's cute? And all of the beauty that she took from Sara goes away, as Sarah's, who now is very accepting of the fact that she's a rat, because she can't even have a concept of being a human before. It's like, yes, I'm like the most beautiful rat in the land. And Azalea is very, very upset about this. So she slams her into a tiny cage at the top of a tower and leaves her there, runs off, and is just like, I hate Sara. And Sara is like crying in the little tower because, you know, she's a princess and she wants luxury. And then like So what ends up happening is there's rat kingdoms that exist in the castle. So there's the rats of the kitchen kingdom, and then there's the rats of the dungeon. And so Prince Radicus of the kitchen rats saves the princess from the tower, and then once he saves her, she's like, "Oh, don't touch me, you disgusting rat. I just wanted to get out." And he's like, "Wait a minute. You smell familiar. I know who you are. You're the rat killer." Yeah, so Sarah's had a very long history with killing rats in the kitchen. So they lock her up and plan to have her executed. Meanwhile, Calum is like, "Azalea, where is my sister?" And she's like, "Oh, she's just up in the tower." And he goes up in the tower and his sister isn't there. And he's like, "Azalea, if you do not find my sister, I am king. I can do so much damage to you. I swear, like, what you've already done is, like, it's enough, okay?" And then Azalea freaks out, and she makes it so that no rats can be hurt at all, and she's, like, going through all the rats in the kingdom, like, which one is she? And she can't find her. Okay, so Sara, like, I think this is a good time to mention, like, we can all feel bad for Sara, and, like, I do all the time, but Sara is the worst. Like, Sara puts herself before anybody else in the entire RP. Like, her brother's being turned into a stool, and she's like, "What about my problem? Fix your problems after my problems." Sara has kind of developed this personality because she's never really had any control in her life, so she controls everybody around her, like, at all times. If she can, she will do it. Part of that is because, like, she has been betrothed to the Bloodshore King, and the Bloodshore King is Cordelia's dad. He's a lot older than Sara. He's a terrible old man, and he has killed every one of his wives, and Sara is like, "I am not going to get married to them." And meanwhile, her parents are like, "No, you're gonna marry him, otherwise there'll be, like, a war that will start, and he will kill you anyways, so just go and do that." And, like, Caleb's like, "Yeah, just go marry this king. No one will get hurt. Like, maybe we can fix it and, like, help you. And then, like, you know, things will be okay." And Sarah's like, "Screw that. I'm not marrying him. Like, if I'm gonna die, I'm bringing the whole kingdom down with me." Like, that's Sara. Like, that is her attitude, like, about everything. And it's so frustrating and awful. And she just walks over people. Like, if someone is in trouble and she's also in trouble, she doesn't care about your problem. She never cares about your problem. She barely cares about the maids. She's so rude to them. And, like, they're terrified of her. And, like, when they turn to go to Azalea isn't much different than what it was like to be under Sarah's thumb. Sara is very Azula, like, if we're looking at archetypes. And so, like, what eventually happens is she's not killed because, like, none of the rats can be hurt in any way. And then the kingdom is taken over and Sarah's left okay. Nothing, like, no one, like, is able to, like, well, no one cares about, like, a little rat. Sara really gets the sense that, like, she doesn't fit in with other rats, and she knows that Azalea's done horrible things to her, but she can't really remember. She just remembers, like, being so mad at Azalea. And so when Azalea comes back to the kingdom, which is kind of where we ended up, like, in the last talk with Ursula, when Azalea comes back to the kingdom, she finds Sara and is like, "Sara, I need your help. We need to work together to fix this kingdom." And Sarah's like, "What do I care about this stupid fairy kingdom? Like, I'm a rat. You've ruined my life, Azalea." Azalea's like, "You ruined your own life, blah, blah, blah," because Azalea is also a stubborn being, but, like, she's way less stubborn than Sara. And they fight. It was, like, a long fight. Ursula's like, "We're never resolving this." And I'm like, "No, we can get through this. I'm sure we can get through to Sara." And eventually, like, Sara kind of, like, admits to, like, Azalea that she really doesn't care about anything because, you know, she was gonna die no matter what, and she really just is angry and wants to take it out on everybody. And Azalea can kind of relate to that, but she doesn't admit that outwardly. She's like, "That's such a stupid way to think, Sara." Eventually, what she does is, like, "Fine, I'll take away, like, the curse, all that I can." And so when she takes away the curse, Sara ends up staying as, like, a rat. That's basically what she is at this point, but now she remembers that she's human. She's, like, horrified to find out that she, like, was thinking of herself as a rat for a while. And she's like, undo it then. And Azalea's just like, well, I can't. I did undo it. That's all that we can do. And so she's like, well, maybe we can figure out some sort of way to turn you back. Like, maybe we could go talk to a spirit or something. Like, who cares? And eventually, I think she gets Sara to come with her. Not after a lot of talking. Sara comes with Azalea on the quest, and Sara is like, gets her to turn her into a nymph, and like the rat scarring stuff remains, but she also turns into a nymph, and she's very upset about this nymph thing because like she's green. She's like a green nymph with like rat ears and like the stupid teeth that she hates and like the stupid tail. And she's just very upset, and she also starts growing thorns because like she ends up being like a rose nymph, which is very fitting of her as a character. She's like, I don't want to be covered in thorns, and Azalea's like, why don't you take them out? And she grabs them, and she's like, it hurts to try and do that. And Azalea's like, oh, I guess they're part of you. Who would have knew? So this is where we're at in the actual RP right now, is that Wolf has lost kingship. And then Kaelin loses kingship. And that seems to mean, in Umbra's mind, that of course she would then become queen. Like, it is ripe for a taking. No, it is not, because there is another heir to the throne. And so freaking Sara, the worst person ever, turns into Sara, the queen of the Eastern Kingdom. She's sort of like Wolf, but she is a rat. She ends up not looking very nymphy, but like she has like thorns all over her and like a crown of like roses, and she's very upset about her appearance. And Azalea's like, well, it's just who you are on the inside. And Sara is like, oh, is that any way to talk to your queen? Basically, Sara is going to enact beautiful revenge on Azalea now that she is in a position of power over her. And the tables have turned, and someone else is going to get to be a rat maid this time. Poor Azalea. I kind of ship them, honestly. Like, we've kind of come to the moment where it's like, they are into each other. Yeah. Yeah, she's my favorite character. I don't know why. I'm like in love with like RPing as Sara, and I talked way too long about like one character where like nothing really happened. Very angry rat girl. That's my aesthetic. That's my soul. My soul is a freaking angry rat. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, because I know that you did it. Y'all are subscribing like crazy people. When we hit 10K, super secret announcement. Like, I want to do a 24-hour live stream, a 24-hour comic live stream where we make like a 24-page comic in 24 hours. I've always wanted to do that. So like, let's get to 10K, guys. Also, thanks for everyone who's watching me on DeviantArt and sending me llamas. I don't even know what that means. I don't know what llamas are, but like, thanks for sending them. I'm maybe I'll start a llama farm. Thanks. Goodbye. Oh my god, that was weird.